Ba-da-ba-dum. Cool, we're live. Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing very, very well. It's been a long time since we've done a 5-minute language chat. Today we have Kris. Kris, how are you?
Good. Everything's good here, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you guys know how this works, or actually probably a lot of you don't know how this works because a lot of you are new subscribers. So I'll explain how this works. We're going to set a timer, which I actually don't have a timer on me, which kind of sucks, but I'll use my clock on my laptop. And we're going to do a 5-minute, unscripted discussion about various things that are related to languages and language learning. So I dropped my pen. There we go. Cool. So let's jump right in. I'll look at the time. It's 8:33 for me, so it gives us right to about 8:38. All right, let's go. Kris, quick intro on you. What's your name? Well, we know your name, but what do you do for work? Tell us a bit about you.
Yeah. I'm a speech-language pathologist. I work in a hospital with patients who've had strokes, brain damage, traumatic brain injuries, Parkinson's disease, those types of things. And I help them with their communication, so how they get their message out, as well as how they get the message in, as well as taking a look at how safe it is for them to eat and drink.
How do you help them with a lot of the language stuff, like getting messages in and out? What do you normally do?
A lot of times, so what can happen with their brain, but not move the way they wanted to.
Sorry, Kris,
or
I think we
sometimes
lost you for like 10 seconds there. You want to just repeat what you said for the answer question?
Yep. Yeah. So what happens is maybe the message is still in their brain after something like a stroke, but now the muscles don't move in their mouth. So then you sort of have this. You have all the information inside, and they have the insights. They look like they can point to what they want. They can do all those things, but they can't communicate it verbally anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to sort of figure out what's still intact, what's not intact anymore, and sort of how we can build the bridge between it. Maybe they can't speak verbally, but they can write the message out, or they can point, or they can gesture.
How'd you get into that?
I don't know. My sister's friend was a speech language pathologist, and just growing up, I wanted to do something in the sciences. I wanted to be in healthcare. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Didn't want to work as hard as a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just looking at therapy jobs and things like that, and speech was something that sciencey, it was psychology, it was linguistics, and it was sort of all wrapped into one.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you obviously, I'm assuming a lot of stuff you deal with is related to things like pronunciation, I'm imagining. Like being able to articulate things correctly or properly or fully.
Yeah, a lot of it is articulation problems or differences. A lot of it's more like almost like a lisp to some degree, where their just tongue isn't as quick or as precise as it needs to be. So those sort of slur, and a lot of times it's sort of trying to steer people towards how they can still make themselves heard. So it's not so much can I make the sounds 100% crisp or like sound like a native, but more so like whether or not they can get their message understood on the other side.
Got it. So does that, so obviously know a little bit more about you than probably everyone else watching, but you have your Anchor podcast, which guys link is in the description if you want to see it. But you talk a lot about accents. Do you feel like your line of work helps you with that, or is that your ability with accents, has that just been something that's always been there?
No, I think it totally meshes together, and that's sort of where my interest in accents came from. I wasn't really interested in accents before, so this is sort of new territory, new ground for me. One of the things that I learned was sort of the intricacies or nuances of pronunciation, and sort of how subtle changes in the way you move your mouth, you, I don't know, shape your lips, you open your mouth slightly more, things like that, that makes such a subtle change to how you sound, that I sort of just wanted to also take on that position of, okay, cool, like accents is something that I can apply my information, my knowledge on, and go from there. So yeah.
So can you do, what kind of accents can you do? Do you do, actually,
that's the problem.
Can you do like just English stuff, or can you like, or do you deal with accents in other languages too?
So I don't know any other okay, so let's backtrack. I know a little bit of French just from like basic high school stuff. There's a government for Canadian government. There's the My Explore program where I went to Quebec for like about a month.
I know it.
So I did that for a little bit. I speak a little bit of Cantonese, but I would argue that I'm like below preschool level.
Okay.
So it's pretty minimal stuff for me. But with regards to English, I don't even know other accents of English. It's more so. So really, my Anchor FM sort of station was sort of documenting. Okay, I want to learn other accents, English accents, English dialect accents, but I'm going to just document as I go, as I learn them.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
your Anchor radio, your Anchor podcast station is more about like it's more about almost like recording your progress of trying to learn about how other accents work in different regions, different countries, different parts of the world. Is that right?
Yeah. And I'm trying to sort of bring in from a speech language pathologist sort of point of view and sort of my knowledge of the anatomy, the physiology, and those types of things, trying to create, or I guess give new perspective on why I'm interpreting it my way.
What would you think is different about your way of accent interpretation compared to maybe other people who do it?
I mean, I think part of it is being a bit more aware of the anatomy in terms of how the tongue should move and those types of things. I think particularly from, I would sort of say that I can tie in sort of the sciencey kind of aspects of it, and more sort of like whether it's resonance or whether it's or something like that to someone's accent, being able to know the science or the physics behind it as well, and sort of how that influences those descriptions. So I haven't really gone into it too much at this point in time on my station. That right now there's a lot of people who are teaching accents or out there that provide understanding from like an acting voice coach kind of view for accents, picking up accents, but there's not many people who do it from an SLP, speech language pathology point of view.
Interesting. That's really fascinating. Yeah, it's actually, especially because it'd be interesting if ever, you're a young guy, you look young. Be interesting
Yeah.
if at some point in your life, if you ever were teaching a language, if ever down the road, or even you said you maybe teach them accents. I think you can get into that in a sec, but it would be interesting to see how you teach language as a whole with coming from that kind of background. Because I feel like I'm always really fascinated when people do some kind of line of work, but originally come from something outside of that field. So for example, it's like if you go into acting, but for years you worked in like as a doctor. Like you
Right.
come from such a different framework that it almost brings a fresh perspective onto things, I find.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's sort of why I gravitated towards it, because there's a lot of speech language pathologists who teach people English and sort of how to sound or develop a sort of North American or Canadian English sound. But there's not many that will learn a different accent, like, I don't know, a French accent or something like that, and sort of go the other way. So yeah.
That's cool. So
Yeah.
we're a little bit over our time, as I think it always happens, but that's okay. What we'll do, last 30 seconds, we didn't talk about your lucid accent. Tell us, in a few words, what's that all about?
So it's sort of a side business that I've started where I try to take what I know about English, North American English, and sort of teach other people who feel that their accent's a bit too heavy to understand when communicating with other English speakers or things like that, or they feel like they're held back by inability to express themselves or communicate their knowledge. A lot of times it's technical knowledge that they know, but being able to communicate it with native English speakers or things like that. So what I do is I try to take some speech samples from them, sort of boil down what tendencies they tend to have based on their native language, and sort of apply it to learning English.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Fun stuff. Well, everyone, thank you for watching. Kris's links are in the description below. I follow him on Anchor as podcast, and it's quite actually pretty interesting. I like listening to it, so highly recommend you guys to check it out. And we'll wrap it up there. See you guys.
See ya.